invading other people and then going, right, now our stories are your stories.
Well, yeah, especially when it's enforced by death.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you want to do, Christian or dead?
Yeah.
I'll take Christian, please. And I think the volcanic eruption, or an earthquake occurred that led to a volcanic eruption on the island of Santorini that ended up with most of the island being destroyed.
If you're new to our channel, please consider subscribing and hitting a like on the video. It really does help us. But there's lots of examples around the world of these, of us finding cities under the ocean. Right, so there's Pavlo. Right, I'm going to try and get my gob around this. Pavlo Petri.
Yeah, that's not too difficult. Of all of the names of
some reason, some of the words we have to say. Pavlo Petri. So they reckon about 5000 BC this was lost under the sea, and they think that was a Minoan city as well.
Yeah.
So again, that's interesting. Even more modern than that, Port Royal. If you love the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff, you know Port Royal, and there was an earthquake, and that went under the ocean, and it's still pretty intact. You can see the stone things and stuff. So you know, that's an example of
in modern times the sea reclaiming land.
I think it was 1692. So that is, you know, compared to what we're talking about, it's modern times. And then there are lots of sort of these places around the world, like I was reading about the Dwarka. I don't think I'm saying that right. Dwarka in India. It's 131 feet deep now.
Right.
And but in Indian culture, it was supposed to be the home of Lord Krishna. Yeah. So again, I don't know a lot about Indian mythology and religion, so I apologise if I get this horribly wrong. But basically, there's the Lord Krishna. This was his home, and then for years there was just this myth of this city, and that was the home of Lord Krishna. But nobody had found it, and then within the last 100 years or so, they found this city, and it is a beautiful and reasonably intact ruin.
It's 130
feet below the ocean.
Well, that kind of ties in with the sea level rises at the start and end of the Younger Dryas period.
It's just become flooded.
And what was that, 100 metres, they reckon, at both times?
100 metres, 300 feet.
10 degree centigrade temperature rise, 100 metre sea level rise, then glaciation for 1200 years, where it reclaimed all of that sea level rise again, and then did the same again, and did 300 feet, 100 metre sea level rise, which would put something at 131 feet.
Most definitely.
Underwater.
If it was that ancient,
that city of Dwarka then is very old. You're talking pre-Younger Dryas.
That had become myth, though, again, is my point. That has become myth. People believed it was just a story, and then we found it. You know, this is like Troy. It had become myth. And then within my life, it was in the late 80s, we found it. We found Troy and suddenly realised it. Related to that, here we go, Heraklion is another city that was found in 1999 that had become myth. The myth was this is a town that Helen of Troy and Paris went to immediately after the siege of the thing of Troy. It was a vast city. They're still dragging statues and things out of the sediment now. It's an insanely beautiful place. They found wreckage of hundreds of ships, so it would have been a really important port city. And it was a Frank Gaudio that found it.
Okay.
But it was believed to be myth, and it's 150 feet below the ocean now. So that must have been some sort of earthquake or something. I should imagine that's dropped.
That mass must have dropped significantly in recent times. That's a much more recent event then.
But it can't have been too devastating, because like I say, it's still reasonably intact.
Okay.
So that's an odd one. But like I say, they're pulling intact statues and out of the sediment. So
that also gives credence to land masses being able to rise and fall. Due to perhaps tectonic forces we're not understanding.
Far more fluid than we realise.
Yeah, I think that, and I think just because something's that's so many feet underwater, like this, that can't possibly be the city of the city, because it's too far underwater. That would be pre Younger Dryas to have sea levels low enough that it would have been on dry land. But it then
something has to have happened.
Something has to have
We know
happened,
the Med
yeah.
is there is volcanic action. There is stuff that goes on in the Med, though. I mean, this city again, believed to be myth, found it. So anybody for me that says Atlantis is pseudoscience and couldn't have existed
is closed-minded and,
yeah,
and not open enough to new viewpoints.
And I'd say a bit of an idiot, because we've repeatedly proven that these things do slip into myth, and there's seems to be a nugget of truth.
Find the city. Haven't they also found the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, the biblical cities as well?
And the wall that was is it the walls of Jericho that were destroyed?
Yes,
by it, and they've
it was.
And that was the myth again. And then they've found evidence that it looks like it was, and definitely even found evidence of gunpowder. So
okay, I didn't know about the gunpowder bit.
I think so.
Right, okay. I'll have to.
That might be not true.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll
I
double
might edit
check
that out just in case that's bullshit. So, but I do think it was last year they actually found archaeological evidence of this wall that had been knocked down, and that this story might actually be true. But again, it won't be the story that.
That's why I say you should always take all these stories with a pinch of salt, even the ones about the giants of old and Nephilim in the Bible.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily go, giants don't exist. Well, they might not now, but did they in the past? Do you know without certainty?
I can't wait till we get to Petra. That's going to be towards the end of the series before we start talking about pyramids and things. But
yes,
Petra,
that's an interesting city in relation to giant.
Massive doors.
Yeah.
And they had to carve this out of solid thing. So you'd think, maybe I'm just lazy, but I'd have built that door as just the size necessary. I'd have measured myself, and that's how much I'd have built that door, because I'm carving this thing out of solid rock.
So
And then the rooms, they're enormous.
6 foot, I'd have been happy with. I've got a good,
I'll go 7, just in case there's the odd tall person.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
But what I wouldn't go is like 30. Unnecessarily.
It's a lot of extra carving.
Unless you're building it just in case the masters come back.
Return.
But anyway, so Petra's fascinating. Right, we're going to end this now on talking about what we're going to do in the next couple of episodes. Because there is that theory that Atlantis may have actually been the hub of an empire.
Yeah. A previous global civilization.
Potentially global, yeah. So you've got like the Roman Empire, which was one city again that spread and created this empire. So that's an example of the kind of thing I think we're talking about, is that it's possible that from one city becoming advanced quicker than others, that spreads. And I think we're going to be talking about sites all over the world that could potentially be outposts of Atlantis. I mean, Solon talked about Egypt being an outpost of Atlantis.
Yes.
I wonder about, we seem to see pyramids built all over the world. There's sunken pyramids off the coast of Japan in Chile.
Yeah.
There's some argument about whether they're natural phenomenon or not, but they look like pyramids to me.
There's also, I've seen some cracking, not just sunken pyramids, but other monolithic structures. So plateaus and pillars and it's not just the pyramids down there. It's like streets of cities and stuff as well.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So it's
these monolithic sites that we see all over the world, like Stonehenge. We know Stonehenge was a meeting point. They were talking about bones from lambs from Scotland found at Stonehenge. So that means people from Scotland walked to Stonehenge. We walked from the campsite in Stonehenge when we visited Stonehenge a few months ago, and that was long enough. But they're thinking that this was a meeting point for the entire country. Who were they going to see that they thought was important enough?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
That they walked and brought lambs from Scotland. I mean, our little nation is not that big.
I suppose
I still don't want to walk to Scotland.
No. But one thing was they
took weeks.
They probably had a bit more free time in those days. They didn't have jobs.
Yes, they didn't have the 9 to 5 to worry about. But that doesn't mean that they would also get up and go, "Oh God, I'm so bored.
I'm going to walk.
Get a lamb and walk into that stone thing." I don't think they'd have done that either. This was considered. This must have been important to them.
Yeah, definitely, definitely important. Yeah.
So, but then we see these monolithic sites all over the world. Adam's calendar,
Yeah, from South Africa. Yeah, which is supposedly significantly older than our Stonehenge.
There's a place called Armenian Stonehenge that
Yes.
you told me about. I knew nothing about. That they think is around. Was it 10,000 years?
5,500 BC, about 7,500 years old.
Yeah, so it's again older than Stonehenge, and it's these stones with these holes drilled in and or carved out.
Yeah, that line up to a specific star on specific times of the year. Again,
we're going to find out far more about that and research this because we've only looked at it briefly, haven't we? But it's a phenomenally interesting place, and again, it's ancient.
Yeah.
But why were they doing it? The one thing I could think of is that they seem to be building these massive calendars, and maybe it was to judge when to meet, because the Atlanteans were coming.
Quite possibly.
Or the Anunnaki.
Well,
the Anunnaki were coming.
Quite possibly, yeah. But if they said we will return on this particular date, you need a way of tracking that particular date with accuracy, then you could understand the reason for building the henges, couldn't you?
Yeah. But then we see pyramids in South America. We see the pyramids that I suspect are far older than we realise.
Yes.
At Giza. I think the South American pyramids are probably far older than we realise. You have to wonder if Atlantis was lost, could this have been the people of Atlantis spreading and setting up new homes, or could it have actually been a global empire that had points of head offices?
Yeah.
Stonehenge was actually an Atlantean head office
when
Britain.
When you do study the construction methods of a lot of the ancient sites of the world, there's some remarkable similarities in the technically competent construction methods that seem to start at the earliest with the most advanced methods and then seem to drop off.
Yeah, but we've had stop-starts in history, it would seem. It would seem that we've... But we can see that in recent time, though. The Roman Empire brought pipes and all
sanitation.
Sorts, didn't it? Sanitation.
Yeah,
we
then
toilets. Forgot how to do that for 1,000 years in the UK.
Yeah, we completely lost that.
So it does happen.
Yeah, the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. That was why.
If the Dark Ages hadn't have happened, imagine where we'd be technologically today.
Oh, we'd be
500 years more advanced than we are now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, and through that lack of or that loss of sanitation came the
Black Death.
Well, the Black Death and wiping out the Spanish flu, wiping out. There's been a lot of instances where there's been an outbreak of a virus or that's wiped a lot of us out.
On a sanitation level, we didn't get back to that until Victorian times.
Yeah.
We just used to throw out poop in the street. But I mean, there's lots of things technologically, let's speak, that the Romans did that we then just forgot for 1,000 years, and so I do think you see this stop-start of technology
because you've always got the possibility of natural events, cataclysmic events, wiping people back out to the bottom again and having to restart, haven't you, as well? So it's you're right. I think
which is exactly where we get to when we talk about the Younger Dryas event.
Yeah.
And exactly what we're talking about with Atlantis, that we could have had an advanced worldwide global empire. I don't think they had flying machines and things like in the Disney movies, but technologically advanced that we probably didn't get back to until medieval times, potentially, something like that.
I think there is in ancient Indian culture a text called the Vimana Shakista, which is I think again part of one of the ancient Indian classics, probably part of the Bhagavad Gita, which actually don't just talks about it actually gives engineering drawings for the chariots of the gods and the flying machines that they used to fly around in.
We know that was the Anunnaki. We did a whole series of videos on it.
Who knows? But it's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it, that we do have ancient texts in India that speak of flying machines that the gods used to travel about in.
There's texts in Egyptian texts of similar type of thing, isn't there, about the gods of the chariot?
There's an Egyptian Egyptian hieroglyph that's very interesting, isn't there, on the Temple of Luxor, I think, where it depicts what looks like a submarine, a helicopter, a fighter jet, and a that's quite intriguing.
No, I don't think so. I think that's us looking back and with our eyes and seeing patterns. We see patterns. And so no, I don't buy into that. I do wonder what these, like say the Indian prophets and Egyptian things were writing about when they talked about chariots of gods and flying machines.
That's a Von Daniken term, isn't it? Chariots of the Gods. That was the title of his book, which was, well, I suppose the first ancient astronaut.
Yeah.
Theorizer, wasn't he? Great book. He does really postulate most of his questions in his book, though. He doesn't say definitively, this is evidence of aliens. He says, is this evidence of?
Yeah.
And then people had a right go
Yeah.
with it.
I'm not saying it's aliens.
But it's aliens.
But it's aliens. Right, so, thanks very much. Again, if you are new to the channel, please consider liking and subscribing. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next week.